It's that point of the NFL season where teams are jockeying for position. You're looking to get into the playoffs, unless you're the New York Jets and every other bottom-feeding team, in which case you're looking at the NFL draft and you're trying to jockey for position for the higher draft pick. So I want to get into this topic. Should you be rooting for losses and a better draft pick? Jets, Jets, Jets! All right, welcome in. My name is Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. All right, boys and girls, we're talking about a topic that I think a lot of NFL fans wind up being pretty split on, and that's the whole idea of winning versus losing games at the end of the season to try and improve your draft stock. Obviously, last year I was very much in the camp of let's lose as many games as possible. Trevor Lawrence is coming out along with a bunch of other really highly touted quarterbacks. Let's get ourselves one of the best ones. So the Jets, again at this point in the season, after losing to the Dolphins this past week, the Jets find themselves in that same sort of situation. The Jets are sitting currently at the number 4 overall pick. They also own Seattle's pick, which as of recording this video is the number 8th pick. But we're talking, should the Jets win or lose over the course of these next 3 games? And as a fan, what should you be cheering for? And this week is really interesting for the New York Jets because this past weekend, the Jacksonville Jaguars wound up losing to the Houston Texans, and the Detroit Lions wind up winning against the Arizona Cardinals. So it all of a sudden puts the Jets in a very interesting position in terms of where they could end up within this top 4, top 5 pick. So right now, as it stands, Jacksonville has the first pick, the Lions have the second pick, and Houston is tied with the Jets and has the third pick over us because the first tiebreaker is strength of schedule. They are currently sitting at .004 worse in strength of schedule than the New York Jets, and by virtue of having the same record, if you are playing a schedule that is weaker, you're going to have the better pick. The other tiebreakers go down to like conference, tiebreaker, strength of schedule, division tiebreakers, conference tiebreakers, interconference tiebreakers, and then you get to a coin toss. So there's like a whole bunch of steps before things kind of go to that coin toss situation, and there's still more games to be played. Strength of schedule isn't quite figured out yet, especially with all these games getting moved to Monday and Tuesday night, so it's a little frustrating trying to figure this all out. But as of right now, Jets are sitting at number 4. So with this week, the Jacksonville Jaguars are coming into New York, coming into MetLife, and the Jets have a really interesting opportunity here. It could go one of 2 ways. The Jets could win, beating Trevor Lawrence, making Jet fans feel pretty good. We got that number 2 quarterback that wound up beating the number 1 quarterback, the generational guy that we wound up missing on because we won a few games at the end of last season. Or the Jets wind up losing, and then they wind up putting themselves in the conversation for this number 1 overall pick. Now, when you're looking at the Jets' schedule, more than likely, the Jets are probably going to lose to the Bucs and the Bills. So that leaves the Jaguars as the only potential win left, depending on, obviously some other circumstances. What does Houston's schedule look like? Well, Houston, right now, their remaining games, the Titans, the 49ers, and the Chargers. More than likely, those are going to be 3 losses for Houston. So we can kind of say they're going to be sitting at 3 and 14? 3 and 14 by the time the season is completed. That means we're going to have to come down to strength of schedule, and because they have harder teams on their schedule and the Jets have some slightly easier teams, thanks to Buffalo losing a few games and the Jets playing the Jaguars, we should take over in terms of tied record, and we should have the worst strength of schedule, thus leapfrogging the Houston Texans. So we're still going to hope for them to win, but we could leapfrog them and jump up to number 3. Now, Jacksonville, if the Jets wind up losing to Jacksonville, we wind up having the same exact record, but their strength of schedule would be better than ours. So we would wind up leapfrogging them. So now all of a sudden we're sitting at number 2. And Detroit has this wonky tie that's really throwing us for a loop right now. Because if the Lions lose out, they would wind up having the number 1 overall pick, assuming Jacksonville beats us. But Detroit's final games, they actually play Seattle and the Atlanta Falcons. So really, we need them to win one of these next 2 games, or one of those 2 games, to try and get us to leapfrog a little bit higher here. So you can see where the stakes kind of are. The Jets have a realistic shot at landing the number 1 overall pick. and having their choice of Kayvon Thibodeau or Aiden Hutchinson as an edge rusher. Or, if you want to trade out, you can trade out as well. So it brings up this whole conundrum of, do you go after the draft pick or do you root for wins as a fan? Because as a team, the Jets are going to try and win as many games as possible. And I can understand this frustration because I have been there so many times. How many times have we seen a team win at the end of the season just to screw over their draft pick just enough? The most prominent one for me, I think, was the Giants beating the Washington football team at the end of the season to knock the Giants out of contention for Chase Young while simultaneously putting the Washington football team in prime position to draft Chase Young. So that's kind of what you're talking about here. You're talking about all these situations where a good draft pick could be had, and you could get this top player, or does the win mean more for your team? So when I'm looking at our schedule, you got Jags, Bucks, Bills. If I had to win out, like if you could ask me if I'd rather win out or if I could win a game or anything like that, the answer is going to be yes. It's not like we're trying to get a quarterback. I've done a little bit of research so far. I really want edge rusher at the beginning of this draft, and I like 4 of them. So I'm not as banged up over not getting the number 1 overall pick for sure. If we had to lose out and we got a higher draft pick, I'm also fine with that. Don't get me wrong. I'm definitely excited for a draft pick. But looking at these games, it's hard to root for a loss. But if there was one, the Jacksonville game coming up this week is one that really, really has to be a loss if you want the Jets to have a really high draft pick. Because there gets to be a whole lot of wonky situations if we wind up winning a game and then, potentially shifting around here. Although, to be honest, what is there? 2 teams that are at 4. We would actually still stay at number 4 if we wound up winning a game. So I don't know what I'm talking about there. We'd have to win more than 2 games or win more than 1 game to really jack ourselves up. But we get into this whole conversation of draft pick versus wins. And as a young team trying to figure it out, I would like to see as many wins as possible to try and get more energy going into next season. Leave off this season on a high note. Now, if you're going to tell me we're going to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, but Zach has a horrible game, and Michael Carter doesn't play well, and all the young guys don't play well. Yeah, no, I'm gonna be really upset if we win that game by that, in that fashion. If Zach has a great game and we still lose, that's probably the ideal-ish situation because you want to see the hope for the young quarterback. But of these 3 games, I would say hands down, the one that I want the most, if we have the chance going into the final week of the season to either get the number 1 overall pick or knock Buffalo out of the playoffs, I'm going for the W every single time. I don't care. I don't care. I know I like the number 1 pick. It sounds so nice. I want it. But man, would I love to beat Buffalo. I don't know. This is the conundrum that we wind up putting ourselves in. Do we go with the victory? Do we go with the loss? What are you cheering for? Guys, let me know in the comment section down below what you're rooting for. Obviously, we're rooting for Seattle to lose. If they could wind up losing to the Lions, that's probably the best case scenario for everyone involved here. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. Do you want losses? Do you want wins? Do you want a better draft pick? Who do you want in this year's draft? Let me know in those comments down below. And as always, go Jets.